Everyone, welcome. It's Jane here and I have got another project to share with you today. I'll be posting this video on both my own page, Card Days Night, and also Craft and Connect, because I'm making this project as inspiration for the current Craft and Connect challenge, and I'll talk more about that in a little while. But for now, I'm just showing you the supplies that I'm going to be using today. I'm going to be doing some layered stencils, and I'll be adding some stencil paste to one of the layers. So I'm just showing you, if you're not familiar with layering stencils, they're the 3 layers there. This is a watermelon pattern, so we've got the rind, the flesh and the seeds. So you can take each of those stencils separately, add different colours, add pastes, whatever you want to do to build up your finished picture. So I have grabbed some Wow Super Smooth cardstock here because it's brilliant for ink blending. And I've lined up the first of my stencils in the bottom right hand corner of my piece of card. And I've done that because I know that when I add the other stencils on afterwards, I can get them lined up in exactly the same place by putting them in that bottom right hand corner. So for my first stencil, I'm just doing some ink blending. I've got my blender brushes here and I am using one of the Concord and 9th ink cubes in the quarter watermelon, appropriately. And you'll notice that I am stenciling this on both clockwise and counterclockwise, and the reason for that is just to make sure that you get up into all of the little areas of the stencil. If you are only ink blending in one direction, you might not properly get up right to the edge of the stencil in the other direction. So that's just a little tip there to make sure that you get good coverage when you are ink blending through your stencils. The other thing that I'm doing here is a little bit of shading with just one colour. So I'm applying the colour on lightly and then going into one of the sides of each watermelon segment and blending it a little bit darker. So we've got a little bit of a gradient of colour there, just like you would have in an ordinary slice of watermelon. So having finished that layer of ink blending, I'm just carefully peeling off my washi tape to reveal the pattern underneath, and I really like how that's turned out. So grabbing my second stencil, again lining it up in that bottom right hand corner, I'm just going to fix it down again with some washi tape. And I've decided that what I want to do for the watermelon seeds is use this black glaze pen. It's from Sakura, and that goes on really glossy, just like watermelon seeds, and it's also slightly raised. But unfortunately, I notice as I'm putting it on that this stencil is squashing the ink down and smudging it. So plan B, I've cleaned off my stencil and I'm coming back with some mushroom ink from Concord and 9th. Again, I'm just going to ink blend that over the entire stencil, going both clockwise and counterclockwise to make sure that I'm getting into all of those little sections. And then once I've covered the entire stencil, I am going to take the stencil away and I'm going to come back in with my glaze pen and just go over those little grey seeds that I've ink blended on. So still going to end up with the same effect, slightly more long-winded process, but if you can see in the light there, they're slightly raised and really shiny, just like watermelon seeds, so I'm really pleased that I took the time to go back and do that. So for my third and final stencil, I am going to be using some stencil paste to add some texture. I didn't have any of my plain stencil paste. Well, I did actually, but it had dried up. So what I did have available was this Nouveau shimmer paste, and I think the colour's Moonstone. So it's basically a white paste, but it's got some kind of iridescent shimmer through it, which is not what I planned on using. But you know what? Glittery watermelons, why not? So I haven't got any coloured stencil paste, so I've decided to make my own. So I'm just grabbing a re-inker from Concord and 9th, and this is in the colour Clover. There's such concentrated ink that you really don't need much. So I've literally just put 1 or 2 drops into the stencil paste there, and I'm using my kind of spatula or paste tool to mix it in together. So once it's all properly mixed, I'm going to line up the third stencil again in the bottom right hand corner and just making sure that there's no kind of overlap. And I'm going to spread that stencil paste on with the spatula. So this small tool is not going to be the one that we use to spread the paste over the entire stencil. It's literally just to get it on nice and thick at the top. And then we're going to come in with this bigger paste tool. This is really, really good for spreading the paste over the stencil. And if you can actually hear the kind of the grit in the stencil in the paste, sorry, as I'm spreading it over the stencil. So that's all that glitter in the paste. So at first I thought maybe I've not made enough paste here. Is this not going to cover the entire stencil? But then when you look at the other side of the paste tool, you can see how much paste is still on there as you're spreading it. So all you need to do is to flatten that tool down, so it's almost kind of horizontal to the page, and continue to spread it, and that will push more of the paste down the page. To scrape any excess off, you want to make that paste tool a little bit more vertical, and then that scrapes it off nicely. So peeling away that final stencil, and you can see the glittery green rinds of the watermelon. And I mean, I hadn't planned on putting glitter in there, but I love how that's turned out. So to finish up the card, I just want to add a simple sentiment, because I want to let this stencil background be the star of the show on my card. So I'm just stamping the coordinating sentiment that comes with that set that says "Thanks a Melon." I've done that in black ink, and now I am going to go over it with embossing ink, because I'd like to make that sentiment nice and shiny, just like the seeds of the watermelon on the card. So I'm adding some clear gloss from Wow Embossing, and yes, this is quite a large jar. I'll probably have to leave that to somebody in my will, because honestly I don't think I'm ever going to get through that in my lifetime. So having covered all of that up, I'm just going to tap off the excess, and then I'm going to heat it with my heat tool. With your heat tool, just make sure you get it nice and hot before you bring it over to your stamp, and that just makes sure that it heat embosses it really, really quickly, and it'll stop any warping happening. So you can see how lovely and shiny that's turned out. Off screen, I have just fussy cut it with my cutter bee scissors, which are lovely and small, really good precision scissors for fussy cutting. And now I am trimming my panel down with my Tim Holtz guillotine. I've decided to make it quite small. I think it was probably 3.75 inches by 4 3/4 inches. So about half an inch smaller than an A2 size card. And then I'm taking some clover cardstock from Concord and Ninth to go with the colour of the rind on the watermelons, and I've cut that down into an A2 panel. So that's 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches. I'm just adding some foam tape to the back of the panel now, because if you know me, you know that I love dimension. So I'm just trimming that down with my non-stick scissors. If you haven't got some non-stick scissors, by the way, get some. They're a game changer. Don't ruin your other scissors, your other good craft scissors, by getting all sticky gunk on them from foam tape. Make sure you get some scissors that have got a non-stick blade. These were actually fairly cheap and cheerful. I think they were probably about £4. They're made by X-Cut, and I'll link them down below if you're interested in getting yourself a pair. So just adding that panel on to the centre, so we've got a lovely green border there that's just bringing out the green in the background, and then adding on the sentiment again with a bit of foam tape. So that finishes up this card for Craft and Connect June challenge. The challenge is all about stencils, and anything goes. You can do ink blending, stencil pastes, you could do double stenciling, you could stencil over heat embossing, whatever you want to do. We'd love to see what you make. Don't forget to use the hashtag Craft and Connect Challenge to be entered into this month's draw and to win a bunch of stencils. So I hope to see you again soon, and thanks for tuning in. Bye.